statistically, you need to have higher numbers and a better GPA, a better MCAT score to get into an MD program than you do to get into a DO program. But ask yourself, take a step back from the competitiveness and all these numbers and ask yourself, why are you doing this? And will doing a different curriculum somehow make you a better physician at the end of the day? And I am of the belief that going through the MD curriculum, which is very similar to the DO curriculum, does not make a difference because you are going to still be practicing primary care. You're still going to be doing pediatrics or surgery or dermatology. You can still do all of the same specialties that MDs can do, albeit you may be perceived as being less competitive because there is the stigma that you don't need to have as good of an MCAT score GPA to get to those specialties. Now, the caveat here is that you're thinking too far ahead into the future when you look at it from that perspective, because by the time you're applying for residencies, you will have already taken the COMLEX if you're a DO, or you could also take the USMLE if you're a DO, or you will have just taken the USMLE if you're an MD. So if a DO candidate, and this is the whole point, if a DO candidate takes a USMLE, scores higher on the USMLE than an MD who took the same test, that would be a more competitive applicant for that specialty. I don't really care if you did an MD curriculum or a DO curriculum. If, when you're looking at residency programs, the thing I've heard from every single medical student I've spoken to is that the most important thing is how well you do on those exams, the USMLE and the COMLEX. If you don't do well enough, you're just not going to get that specialty. You're not going to get the residency programs. That is what matters at the end of the day. Whether or not you did MD or DO does not. And it's very clearly stated on the American Medical Association's website. All right? But we as humans like to take shortcuts in how we judge other people. And it's very hard to look at someone and say, you're going to be a good physician and you're going to be an even better physician because of your background. We do this all the time when we're hiring people. We like people who went to UC Berkeley or Harvard more than we like someone who went to Ohio State. It's just we like answering easy questions in our head because it's simpler than having to really look at someone holistically and ask, is this someone I would trust to be my doctor? And so that is the huge problem that we have, is that we too easily associate causation with high statistics. And a great example of this, and I'm a huge Malcolm Gladwell fan, is the notion that, when we say that MDs are better than DOs and that MDs deserve all this recognition and credit, I don't mean to be derogatory towards MDs, but when we see people say, like Dr. Jabal, say that MDs are better than DOs, we're basically saying, let's give the basketball team an award for having so many tall people on it. You wouldn't be on the basketball team if you weren't already tall. Same thing can be said of the MD programs. Like, you're not going to be there unless you're already really smart. I'm someone who went to UC Berkeley and did their chemical engineering program. Okay, it's the number 2. When I went, it was the number 2 chemical engineering program in the country. Does that mean I now get to look down on everyone else who did chemical engineering and say that they're not as good as me because I went to the best program I could? I don't think so. I disagree. I think the quality of my work should speak for itself. And just so you know, like, I still fail. I still get rejected. I still struggle through the same problems and challenges that people who went to the other engineering programs do too. It's like we have somehow assumed that, the underlying message that frustrates me and that I hope people watching this video will take home is that just because you don't do an MD program does not mean you're not going to be just as good of a physician on the other side. The quality of the physician that you ultimately become depends on so many other variables besides where you went to school. Dr. Malcolm Gladwell has another great example in his podcast where he discussed people in law school and how the best Supreme Court justice was someone who, Dr. Scalia, or Chief Justice Scalia's best clerk was someone who went to Ohio State. And it's because they didn't do that well in the test, but they had an ability to understand and think very slowly and create and analyze very complex arguments that you just can't really measure that well when taking the LSAT. And so, again, we just see in the profession of medicine this notion that, oh, you went to Harvard, so you must be the best lawyer or best doctor that there is, and someone who went to a lesser school or a DO school isn't as good of a doctor. And I know there's a lot of emotions involved, and people will keep coming back to this thing that somehow you're a better doctor if you went to an MD program than you went to a DO program. And even if you went to an MD program, well, you're a better doctor if you went to a higher ranked school than a lower ranked school. And it's like you're just entering this loop that you will never get out of. Like, we love to analyze and compare ourselves to other people. And so, for me, a very important thing to ask yourself, like when you're reading CARS passages, the critical analysis and reasoning sections on the MCAT, you're supposed to think about the author's opinion and their tone and their motives. And so when you listen to people like Med School Insiders, and again, I think they're great. I really admire all the advice they give. I try to take a lot of their advice too, but they have said some things that I disagree with, and that's why I'm making this video. When you listen to their content, they're there to make money. They are there to try to push people to get the highest possible MCAT score they can, get the best personal statement they can, get the best GPA they can, so that they go into MD programs, because MD programs currently have higher statistics than DO programs. So obviously it is in their best business interests to tell people and to convince people that if they were better at the MCAT, or they have a higher GPA or a better personal statement, then they should go into MD program. And they do it at the expense of making DO programs look less. And in my opinion, this is very bad practice, because we live in a country right now where we have a shortage of primary care doctors, and just healthcare in general is in tatters because we need more people to enter this field and help others. And if we are at a point at which we are deliberately trying to make one field of healthcare look bad so that we can somehow incentivize people to spend even more money to try to have a better personal statement or better MCAT score or better GPA by purchasing services from Med School Insiders or whatever test prep company there is, I don't care, then we've reached a very bad point, because we need to be focusing on how to inspire more people to enter this profession to do more good, because we need more doctors and nurses and physician assistants and lab technicians in healthcare. How you get there, I don't care, to be honest. I know some people do, and that's because we love to judge each other. But the way that I look at these things is, if your goal is to be a primary care doctor, does it really matter if you got to there by doing MD or by going another route and doing DO? The other thing is, the curriculums are very similar. Regardless of how you look at it, you're receiving very similar training in MD or DO programs. A notion that somehow, oh, well, an MD is going to make the correct diagnosis when a DO wouldn't is ridiculous, because it's not true, because they have both received the same training. In addition to that, DOs receive additional training, osteopathic manipulative treatment, but at the core, MDs and DOs have received the same training, okay? You're given the same tools to do the same job at the end of the day. Now, to play devil's advocate here, going to more prestigious programs like, me going to UC Berkeley to do chemical engineering, it puts you in networks where you're around other people who are very successful, and that is generally the reason why, it is nicer to go to higher ranked schools or programs. But if you step back and you ask yourself personally, what is best for me? Why am I doing medicine? Is it because I want to be a primary care doctor? And if that answer is yes, then that should be the driving force and the motive behind this, and how you get there should not matter. And the AMA article that I'm referencing in this video, I'll provide a link to in the description so that you can read it. But the author ends it by saying, don't worry about the degree, and also apply to both. Apply to MDs and DO programs, and allow yourself to come to your own conclusion. Because if you're watching this video, I'm not persuading anyone to enter healthcare here. I'm just saying, if you want to enter healthcare, there's multiple ways to do it, and decide for yourself what is the best fit for you. Do you see yourself being more comfortable in a DO program? Because there are differences, and a DO license is different from an MD license, even though they do have overlapping responsibilities in primary care or pediatrics, for instance. And answer that question for yourself. Do you see yourself being happier? Do you see yourself being a better physician at the end of the day by going to a DO program or an MD program? I am not here to tell you that MD is better than DO or vice versa. I am here to tell you to make up your own mind and do not let other people put things into your head and make you think that somehow if you did MD, you're going to be so much better off than if you did DO. I'm trying to lay out the facts and let you reach your own conclusions, and I hope this video helps. If you have any questions, feel free to ask, and thank you for watching.